Welcome back. This is Patrick Christys tonight. We're on GB News. Now, I'm going to bring you the very first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages soon and keep you abreast of what is a devastating situation that's taking place in Birmingham. But first, I'm delighted to be joined now by the social business entrepreneur, Phillip Ullmann. Now, Phillip is a former chief executive at one of Britain's largest employment agencies. Now, he had more than 100,000 people working for him, the majority of whom were immigrants. It was migrant labour. But more recently, Phillip has come to realise that maybe this sort of business isn't actually good for Britain, especially in light of the recent events and the ongoing events that we are seeing right now. And he thinks that economic hardship and a failure of integration might be partly to blame. But I will let him do some talking now, because Phillip joins me in the studio. Thank you very much. Could you just explain to our viewers and listeners a little bit about that? So you were employing...
Let me start from the beginning. So I started off in a manufacturing business. I went to university to study engineering. The idea was to join a family company. We manufactured steel wire, and I love manufacturing. The trouble was we were competing with companies in China with labour, with cheaper labour, and so effectively we had to sell the company because we couldn't compete. So that was the start. This is in kind of 1989. It was the start of the move of manufacturing out of the UK to China. Now, that immediately means that there's much less employment in the UK, and that itself means that the UK, I think, has lost its way. Because of the fact that so much of the work has actually gone to China, I think that is problematic, and it's part of the reason why we're seeing trouble now, because effectively a lot of the jobs that we need are not here.
So do you think that there is a link between this kind of level of mass migration that we're seeing and some of the problems that we're seeing on our streets at the moment?
Yes and no. I think definitely there's some underlying concern, and people think the system is rigged. Let me take it back to our understanding of what's actually going on. Now, the one thing that wasn't discussed in the election by either party was what's happened with money, what's happened with mortgages, what's happened with the cost of living. It was raised. So most of the population have seen prices grow by more than 25%. They talk about inflation has now reduced, but those increases haven't been reversed. So many people are everyone's seeing an increase in cost of living. And to counter that, what the government say, we've got inflation, we have to increase interest rates. So that means that many people are now seeing mortgages which are doubled. So first of all, they see an increase in the cost of living, and then they see that their mortgage doubles. And they're struggling to actually put food on the table. So that's the background. I think that's the underlying situation. So people feel the system is rigged.
So for you, one of the big causes behind what we are seeing now is a sense of economic hardship, but also a system being rigged against them, and therefore maybe better for some other people.
Correct. And they know they're being left behind. They know this, but they don't understand why. And that is about the whole banking system, which we can discuss if you'd like, but that will take a bit of time to explore, with banks actually creating money in their own private interests, which is causing inflation of properties, inflation of assets, which means that people are struggling. Now, on top of that, and I think that's the reason why people are no one's listening to them. And when Keir Starmer goes on the television and says, I'm going to bash you, I'm going to actually crush it's sad, because he's not listening to people.
Well, and also if people don't therefore feel as though they've got much to lose, then you're more inclined, I think, to go out and commit. I'm not, by the way, endorsing this. I say you're more inclined to care less about getting a criminal record, I think.
So that's the link. So once you feel let down and you don't trust the system, you're angry. And what these thugs, which we can't condone, are doing is they're tapping in to this underlying anger that nobody is actually even talking about solving the problems of these people. And therefore, they've got nothing to lose, because the system is not looking after them. They're struggling to put food on the table. They're struggling to buy homes. Young people can't buy homes. And therefore, they're angry. And therefore, that's a perfect environment for these thugs to actually exploit the opportunity.
Just very quickly on this. This is a situation that many people have seen coming and been talking about for decades, to say if you create a situation where people feel like that in their own country, then unfortunately you might end up in a situation where this kind of powder keg happens.
No question about it. And it's, to me, it's serious. It's part of a systemic collapse, which I think is imminent. I can't tell you when. I've seen this for some time, but fundamentally, this is the start of social unrest. People are left behind. The interest rates have climbed, which means many banks are actually fundamentally insolvent. The system ultimately is on the point of collapsing. And therefore, this is combined with the social unrest. And I think it's all the same symptom. That's why the stock market's crashing over. To me, it's not a separate issue from the problems with the riots. I think it's all a sign of huge amounts of debt being created, huge numbers of people that have been left behind, that are not being addressed at all. Now, my own experience, just to tell you, it was just this. I provided labour to lots of the large warehouses. These are horrible jobs, I'll be straight with you. These were people were walking around 19 miles in a shift. Most of them were migrants, because our clients wouldn't pay enough to employ the UK labour, because the way the benefit system works, they have to pay more than the benefits. And therefore this migrant is actually holding back the pay of people. And it's not only holding that, means they can't get the jobs. So these migrant workers would come in, they would be without their families. So they would be living the cost of life in Poland or Eastern Europe. So they'd be sending the money back to Eastern Europe, which means they could live off less. But they weren't happy either, because their family would be in Poland. And therefore, they were living off a packet of biscuits a week. They were living literally in share a bed. One person was sleeping in the bedroom in the day, another during the night.
Well, it's that idea that it's not really helped anyone, and we are where we are today, and it's a situation that potentially could have been avoided. Now, look, Philip, I would love to have you back on to talk in much more detail about all of this stuff, because it's a fascinating topic, and I think you alluded to there, depressingly, it's not going away anytime soon.
It's not going away.
So, Philip, thank you very, very much. It's Phillip Ullmann there, of course, who has been quite a big cheese, really, when it comes to being a social business entrepreneur. Look, come